for the next 5 weeks or so, maybe 6. Sal Capaccio is a question for him. I mean, he's out there every time they let him. Sal Capaccio with us on the West Her Hotline. How does it go at the end of this minicamp season, if you will, Sal? Like, do the players? I'm pretty sure they don't, but I want to think that maybe the players just like sprint off the field.
Oh, you get that a bit, like sometimes.
Good.
I don't think that I don't remember that today, like in any circumstance. But I mean, I remember I was out in the parking lot today, the media parking lot, doing a couple things, and I saw guys leaving. You know, I mean, they were ready to go. They were getting out of there, and yeah, you guys just they leave. No, I don't think anybody like sprinted off and oh my god, I gotta get out of here kind of thing. But you know, it's the same thing with training camp. To be honest with you, the last day is the last day, and they can't wait to go home and sleep in their own beds. Now, in this case, they're here in Buffalo, but they're done, and they want to get their their summers going here, and whatever things they're doing for the next. And it actually is, guys. It will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks plus, not quite 6 weeks, 5.5 weeks from now. They'll report to training camp, St. John Fisher. So, yeah, and then the one thing that is different today, they always break up in a huddle, but like Sean McDermott had a talk, with the team and address them in their team huddle for a few minutes before they actually. I posted a little bit of video of it at the end, and that's just to kind of give them the final instructions on what he expects from them and what they need to know about before they leave and get ready to come back.
Take care of yourselves. Be smart. Don't embarrass yourselves. Don't embarrass the organization. I don't know that you would use those words, but that's usually the message, right? Yeah. Right.
A few books to read, maybe some summer reading, like the kids get, maybe. Mm-hmm. Well, what was notable today? I guess let's start with the GM, Brandon Beane, speaking earlier. He talked about James Cook. I know. What were a couple of the more notable comments from Beane?
So it's interesting on James Cook because the messaging did not change on anything he said about James. That they love Jimbo and they want him here and they're confident he'll be here. And he reiterated that anything that he kind of knows about, he expects him to be there. There's nothing that doesn't tell him that. But he kind of threw the words with or without a new contract. And that was a little...
Yep.
I thought that was interesting to say that, right? Like,
I thought that was very
not
notable.
The guy who reads into things, right? Like, I normally don't do that. I like to like put things in, but I want to read into that a little bit and say, is there something going on that we're unaware of? Because the last time we heard the GM talk about it in any context really was, okay, like we're past that. We're going to revisit that at the end of the year, maybe, and next season. He actually said with or without a new contract. And when he was asked about there possibly being any talks about a contract, he did what he normally does, which is like, we don't negotiate through the media. But, and I'm not going to talk about that. I don't talk about contracts in the media or publicly. I just want to note that I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I don't think that if he hadn't said it that way, that I would want to assume that definitely means there isn't going to be a negotiation and that there won't be a new contract. But the fact that he said it sort of it opens the door, at least, like you're saying here. When he last addressed it, it just sounded like, that's for another time. Well, the other time maybe was today. Because I think it is. I have not been thinking that they would get something done. And today sort of cracked that for me. Again, you can overreact to that positively, too. And, they're probably going to get something done. Maybe everyone's just playing nice because Cook came in, so Beane doesn't want to sound standoffish about it because the guy did not have to be here. But he was, and he did the work and whatever, and says he'll be at camp. So I think the least you want to do publicly, if you're Beane, is at least sound open to the idea of making the guy happy. It doesn't mean you're gonna necessarily, but let's not be just so stonewalled about it.
I agree. It seemed to me when James talked the other day that he also kind of left the door open that anything could happen here, right? It's not done that I don't get something done here, and I'll be at training camp, and we'll see where things go. So we'll see. I mean, typically, I don't think if something were to happen, to me, it would almost be like right at camp, the start of camp. because it's good PR. It's good to put the guy out there to have the GM talk.
Yep.
It could get done in the off season when you're not there. But typically, you want to get those things done, ironed out, buttoned up, and you can put people in front of people, and then he's there. He can sign everything. So we'll see where that goes. As far as anything else from Brandon Beane, you guys talked earlier, I heard about, he kind of made sure that he reiterated that maybe he was a little too critical of Dalton Kincaid when he spoke about him at the end of the season. Today was a very good day for Dalton Kincaid, as I'm sure you saw me and other people tweeting about. I thought that he had a really strong day today. I think he's kind of been ascending here through the OTAs and minicamp. But today was the crescendo at the top. The last day, and they were doing a lot of 7-on-7 red zone work, goal line work, making catches. And again, I've always said, you guys know it's an advantage to the offense in these situations. But
right.
That being said, you still have to make plays, and I thought that he did a really good job making some catches. So the other thing, very notable, so everybody knows, not to bury the lead, Max Hairston practiced today. Max Hairston didn't practice today, but he was on the field with his teammates on the sideline. He came out late, and Brandon Beane confirmed after practice it was a hamstring tweak. He should be ready to go for training camp. He will be ready to go. They aren't concerned about that. And he said every other player who sat out with any ailment should be ready to go for training camp.
I want to ask one follow-up on Cook, knowing that we've talked so much about him as it is. But, I mean, Sal, do you agree with me that Beane should really want to get a deal done with him and not let it, linger into the training camp, into the season, and just kind of see what happens? Am I giving Cook too little credit by this? I mean, the fact that he did come in this week is something. I would just think, this is what you do. Whether it's a player or a coach, if you like him, you don't have to, kill your salary cap. You don't have to reinvent the salary cap structure for a running back. But you can find, assuming Cook would take it, I'm not saying that's a given, but I think the Bills should be able to find a happy medium with him, and I think they should want to.
Yeah, this is such a nuanced conversation, right, Mike? Which is the question, should the Bills want to? Yes. Do they want to? I believe wholeheartedly they do. The question is simply about value. That's really a sticking point. It's not that they don't want to sign him. I think Brandon Beane wants to sign him. I think his own words prove that when he said, hey, we talked, realized we weren't going to get anything done with him, so we pivoted to other players, and that's why we signed these other guys. You see the social media behavior and things that are put out there about the certain numbers and 15 million and his brother tweeting about 20 million. And if that's the case, I just think the Bills aren't interested in going that high. Is there a happy middle ground somewhere to be found? Probably there is. But this just comes down to what the Buffalo Bills feel he's worth, what James Cook feels he's worth. I don't think it has anything to do with the player himself wanting him here, not wanting him here, wanting to sign him. And then you just have to figure out, are you willing to go a little bit above of what you kind of originally did to kind of steer away from all this other stuff that's going on? Or on James Cook's side, is he willing to go a little below what he thought to stay away from all this other stuff going on?
Yeah, that's just it. We don't know what that gap is. Right? I mean, we know what Cook has said, 15, and I think it is informative and useful to mention the brother pushing it to 20. I don't know if the 15 is still that number, because that was before Henry, I think, got his new extension, and Barkley too. Because that was early in the off season. So maybe a lot has even happened since then that could impact this. Yeah, it really depends to me on, does Cook want? Of course, he's going to get a lot of money and a lot of money guaranteed, and that would be really nice. But is it enough to get him to, quote unquote, I guess, settle for it, right? If he wants 15 or more, and the Bills are at 10, I don't know. Is that really going to get there? And that's not even getting into breaking down what the guaranteed money is and all that, because that's really the nuts of it, right? How much are you going to put in my pocket that I'm definitely going to get no matter what happens here, is a big piece of this. And I don't know. I would understand, of course, wanting to get a deal done, but I think within reason, you have to sort of stick to what you believe in. And so, I don't know. I even with everything we've talked about today, how Beane sounded, kind of cracking the door open, it really, to me, is up to Cook. I don't think the Bills will move that much, is my guess. And it's a question of whether Cook wants to take bird in the hand. I can get this much guaranteed now, or bet on myself, go through the year, hope I make it out with my legs intact and everything else intact, and then I can either talk to these people again and see if they want to get closer to my number, or I can hit the market and find out if somebody else wants to.
Yeah, that's right. And listen, nobody knows what is most important to certain players when these things come up, too, which what I mean by that is, does James Cook simply want the most AAV, annual average? Does he want to be the guaranteed money is always a big deal, right? That's what it generally comes down to. Is it give him the most, guaranteed you can find, and then if the annual average, is less than that, that's fine. You never know with that. So when I hear $15 million a year, let's just say that's the number. I kind of think sometimes there's a way to get there even without actually giving him $15 million a year, right? It might sound like that, but it's not actually that. You can do that. And that's where funny money comes in. That's where void years come in. That's where, for salary cap purposes, that's where guaranteed signing, but all those kinds of things come in. I don't know what is most important to James Cook in this situation or anybody else. If it's just the annual average value, then yeah, the only three players who make that are Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and Saquon Barkley. That's it. Maybe he just wants to really be paid up front and say, you know what, I'm a smaller running back. And, he alluded the other day he doesn't think about his, career ending short or anything like that. He said you only should take care of your body. But maybe that's something that's more important to him is I get the guaranteed money, not as much the annual average, because who knows what's going to happen in this league. And I think that's a big thing to remember when these parties have these negotiations.
Very good. Bulldog and I will take it from later on. No more Cook time needed here. I just know this is where I say I'm gullible. The way Bean is talking, the way Allen is talking, Cook showed up. I think there's something coming down the pike here before we get to training camp. But I fall for a lot of things. Sal Capaccio on the West Her hotline. Kincaid, you said you heard some of our conversation. What I wonder about, you tweeted about red zone goal line stuff. Where do those touchdowns come from? Do the Bills want to reshape their offense, if that's not putting it too strongly, to afford Kincaid more opportunities there? I don't really think that they need to. I think it's almost like too forced of an attempt to get him to a different place, maybe in terms of production. I mean, 30 rushing touchdowns last year, they're not going to be a team that, unless they can't run the ball in this year, unlike last year, that will want to really scramble for, certain guys maybe to get more targets there. It's just not really been what they've needed to do. Is that too just generalized or too simplistic a way of looking at what Kincaid's role in inside the 20 might actually be?
No, it's a good point. It's a good point, right? I mean, like, you have the best goal line back in the league. His name is Josh Allen when he runs the ball. He's going to run a lot in those situations. They're going to hand the ball off a lot when they get down there. And then, who knows? They don't have these super huge red zone targets, so it's everybody. It truly is kind of an everybody eats when you get down there, as well as it is around the field. They try to have that mentality, right? You never know. So if it's talking about touchdowns in the red zone, in that area down there, yeah. I mean, and look, you guys know how this works. When you get down in that area, you're going to have bigger people come in on the defensive side. You're going to have to maybe block them a little bit. And is that something they're ready for Dalton Kincaid to be a part of as much? Or do they view, okay, you're going to do that, we're going to have a nice matchup we can find. So I think it could go a little bit of both ways. But yeah, look, I think it's tough for anybody in this offense, Mike, anybody in this offense to really thrive statistically like they might in another offense because of the mentality of the OC, the quarterback, what they've structured here, and the balance they want to strike. And that's nothing wrong with that, right? It doesn't play well in fantasy football when you're drafting people. I get that, right? And it doesn't get you to all pros because you don't get the stats. But it's a way to win, and that's the way they look at it.
Did you make anything of being, reiterating, because he did say the same thing to Tyler Dunn shortly after he made the remarks about Kincaid as the offseason began. How much stock do you put in him sort of walking that back? Like, I should have worded that differently. I'm not sure exactly what the quote was, but it sounded like he wanted some of what he said about Kincaid back because maybe he felt he was a little harder on him than he meant to be.
Yeah, I think, at the end of the season, you evaluate your roster. You talk about the things that people need. You come off a disappointing loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. You're one game away from the Super Bowl again. And, I think that you probably say things maybe a little bit differently. Maybe on Keon Coleman as well. Whatever, you get there. I also think that you reflect on as the off season goes, as you see these guys in the weight room working, and you talk with trainers, you talk with doctors, you talk with them, and maybe there's that was just more significant and hindering than we actually thought. That could happen as well. I mean, I'll use the example of Deion Walker, the kid they just drafted. Deion Walker was said to be maybe like a second-round pick, I think, a couple of years ago. Goes back for another year at Kentucky. Does not have a really good year. They find out at his pro day he has a back injury he's been dealing with, right? Like, it's not the same as saying anything, but you're like, okay, like maybe we didn't realize how much that really impacted him. Maybe it took them till the offseason, guys, for him to get in the training room, for him to meet with doctors, with medical staff, to get back in the weight room, for them to say, boy, that was more impactful to you than we thought. Maybe we should have shut you down a little bit.
Sal, you made a comment about Joe Andreessen and maybe there being room for growth there. I'd like to hear you on that, because as good of a local story as it was, and just a story in general, it kind of has seemed to me like maybe that's the extent of it. But I think maybe you could see him playing a bigger role.
It depends on what bigger role than last year for sure. I think, whatever role anybody envisions him in this year, I would say that to me, yeah, the way I tweeted it and what I said was he's gone from a cool, fun story to a guy who can play in the league, like, oh, yeah, this guy can play a little bit in the league, to what I believe this year to be a player who really can help the Bills as, yes, a main special teams guy for sure, but I mean like a primary backup middle linebacker. Like, to me, he's beating out Balen Spector right now. I think he's the number 2 middle linebacker right now. And I think someone would, to me, it's on Joe Andreessen to lose that job. I don't think Balen Spector is just suddenly. Balen Spector has a hard time staying healthy and available. And I'll tell you, the other part of it is Joe has done a really good job in coverage and when I'm watching 7-on-7, and that's just not a Balen Spector strong suit. Right? I mean, you want a guy that, you can have out there in 3-down situations if he has to fill in for any need for Terrell Bernard. I think that's your guy right now, and I really like what I've seen from him. I've seen Joe a couple times over the spring and whatever. We've run into each other a couple times here and there. I think he's bigger. I think that he is. You could see that he's kind of coming into his own in his body in his second year. And I think they trust him. That's the biggest thing. You guys know this coaching staff, the word is trust, right? Sean McDermott. I think they trust him, and they trust him to be reliable and available and do exactly what he's supposed to do.
Well, that is fantastic. Like, you would think a local guy, any guy that gets the shot, but certainly a guy from Buffalo, right? A dream come true. And I'm actually on the Bills. Like, he came in last year as like a minicamp, right, invite, if I'm not mistaken, or rookie camp, and then just never left. You would expect that guy to work like a beast in the offseason to try to everything, foot speed, strength, in every way, shape, or form. Like, you got a training technique I can try? What is it? Right? Like, I would expect that guy to just be all in on trying to impress on them. Like, all right, you liked me last year. Let me show you what I can really do.
I agree. And, Joe is all about football, right? He really is. And he's always been that way. This is how he got to where he is. A cool side story to all this, and I say this sometimes to people, and I don't know if they realize, Joe went to a tryout with the Kansas City Chiefs before he went to the Bills. Yeah. Like, because their rookie minicamp was before the Bills that year. That's why, right? Not like he chose the Chiefs over the Bills, not painting it that way. And the Chiefs didn't sign him. He comes to Buffalo, and they sign him. And it's just kind of a cool thing, right? That's the Bills and Chiefs, and this is one guy that, okay, maybe this is a guy that can help you. And I envision a world someday where maybe there's a critical play that matters between the Bills and the Chiefs, and Joe Andreessen makes it, and you're like, that's the guy you could have had, but he came to Buffalo, and he's a local guy. I think that's a cool sidebar to the story.
Yeah, has to happen on Worthy.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
I'm going to say on an end around then.
On Worthy.
Yeah.
So I don't think I want to see. If Joe Andreessen is covering Xavier Worthy down the field, we got a problem. Probably.
I'll see the guy I let get away with my guy that you let get away right here in the open field. Let's meet. All right, Sal. Well, on to the actual offseason, the one time in the calendar where we maybe have an exception to the idea that football is, 24/7, 365 for about the next month. Not that that means we won't be talking about it, but this is break time.
It is for the players and coaches. It's the time of year when Andrew Brandt always says it's the worst time of year for any executive because anytime the phone rings, you think something happened. They have to deal with one of their players. You hope that doesn't happen. You hope everybody stays safe and happy and healthy and does everything they're supposed to do. Guys will get out of town. They'll go away. Even coaches. I talk to coaches. You just say, yep, they're going to go away for a couple of weeks and do something. And, but they'll be back and they'll get things ready for training camp. And then, full steam ahead once we get to July and training camp out at St. John Fisher.
Yeah, I don't know anyone that enjoys getting calls from a number they don't recognize. But I would imagine NFL GMs, like, any time of the day, but you make the point about it, like the middle of the night or something, but you get like, and even a guy like Brandon Beane probably knows more area codes than the average guy.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right,
that's an interesting point.
Right, just because, you've been around and you are on the phone with these different people in different areas of the country, and you get, why am I getting a call from Georgia? Why?
Does he know his area codes?
No, I don't want this call.
Does he? Is he somebody that in life answers the phone when he doesn't know the number? Because who's left doing that? Is a National Football League manager somebody that has to do that? Does he get spammed more than we do?
Maybe.
Because he answers the phone all the time?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Sorry to offer
I didn't ask
question.
him that today. I talked to him briefly for a minute afterward, but I did not ask him. Maybe that's a question we can save. Maybe that's a question we ask him. It appears on Hard Knocks, right? When it's all said and done. They put it on Hard Knocks, and all of a sudden you have Liv Schreiber come and go, and they show like some phone ring on Brandon Beane's screen. Like they show that's where the shot is, and then his voice comes over and goes, Brandon Beane knows all of the area codes in the country. Something like that.
Who is Spam Risk? Is he on my 90-man? Let me check Sal's grid to see if Spam Risk is somebody on my depth chart. All right, Sal, well, enjoy the break as far as it pertains to you, and we'll talk again soon.